Good afternoon and welcome to today's Ad Week webinar, where we will be covering Hershey's approach to connected TV and really understanding the media shift that is going on right now in the television marketplace. And our webinar today is being sponsored by The Trade Desk. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content over at Adweek, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. So before we begin, I'm just going to take a few moments here and make sure that everyone is familiar with the features of our webinar platform and knows what to expect from today's event. As you can tell, today's webinar is a video webinar, so you will be seeing your speakers here up on video. Our presentation should go somewhere in the 35, maybe 40-minute range. Afterwards, we're going to have plenty of time for audience Q&A. So if at any point during our webinar, if you have a question for our speakers, just simply use the question tool that you should see there on the left side of your screen. It should be underneath the video window, and you can submit your questions, and we will get to as many as we can following our live presentation. It's not too late, by the way, to invite your colleagues to come join us today, and we'd love it if they would. About 15 minutes ago, everyone should have received a final reminder email from us. In there, you'll find a link over to the registration page. So grab that link, send it off to your colleagues. There's still plenty of time for them to come on in, register, and join us live. But if they can't make it live, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand. And we're going to send a link to that on-demand recording to everyone later this afternoon. Check your email about 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time today. You'll get that link. So if, again, you have to leave early, you can always come in and check out the recording. We will have some limited slides today, and we always like to make that slide deck available, and you can find it in the event resources area. That should be a tab down there near the question tool. So feel free to go on in there and download a PDF of the deck at any point during our presentation today. Finally, I just want to remind everyone to please check out the Adweek webinar calendar. If you get some value from today's webinar, we've got a really, really busy schedule coming up during the late April and early May. Lots of different topics being covered. Obviously, connected TV, like we're talking about today, is an area that we frequently cover. Things going on in the cookieless future, retail media, retail data, a number of webinars on that, things about operating your agency and hiring practices and talent management, wide range of different topics coming up over the coming weeks. See what's there, sign up for an upcoming webinar. You'll also get full access to our entire archive of on-demand webinars. That includes anything we've done over the past year. So all the webinars also that we've done with the Trade Desk, you will find in there as well. adweek.com/webinars. All right, so let me move on here for a moment and just quickly introduce our speakers to everyone. First off, from our sponsors, the Trade Desk, we've got Jed Dederick. Jed is the SVP of Global Client Development. He is the leader of the Trade Desk Client Development Organization, really working to build meaningful relationships and understanding of the world's largest advertisers and agencies. And speaking of world's largest advertisers, obviously our focus today is going to be with Hershey, and from Hershey, we are the Hershey company. We are very happy to be joined by Amy Good. Amy is the Integrated Media Director for Digital and Linear over at Hershey. She's a marketer who inspires media innovation that drives business outcomes and challenges partners to deliver on brand objectives. She's been with the Hershey company since 2020. Previously, she was at Nestle in global media procurement, and also Nestle Purina as a media manager leading programmatic strategy. So let me, without further ado here, making these video transitions, let me bring Jed on up to begin our webinar today. Welcome, Jed.
Hey, Stuart, thank you so much. It's really great to be here and welcome everybody to our Adweek webinar session, The Media Shift, Hershey's Approach to Connected TV. My name is Jed Dederick. I am, as Stuart said, SVP of Global Client Development at the Trade Desk. And I am just so excited to be joined today by my very good friend, Amy Good, Integrated Media Director, Digital Linear at the Hershey Company, for a conversation about the shift to streaming and a new approach to the upfronts and how to capture the opportunity on CTV. Just as a side note, because I can't help myself, I have known Amy for, Amy, I was looking at LinkedIn, and it's either 6 or 7 years that we've been working together. And Amy is one of the most passionate people who does her research and develops her own convictions. And she really, doesn't follow the pack. And today and the work that she's doing is just such a great example of that. So I'm so excited to be able to showcase that together today. Before we dig in, I'm going to get started with a quick overview of the state of streaming and the upfronts, and then we'll transition into that conversation with Amy about how she's leading the Hershey Company's innovative approach to CTV, among a lot of other progress that she's made in her time there that we won't have time to get into. But we'll make sure to leave time for Q&A in the last 10 minutes of our time. So please do submit questions to the webinar platform. This event is also being recorded, so if friends and colleagues can't join, they can see it afterwards. So let's get into the first couple of slides just to set the foundation. So I think many of us are probably here because it's undeniable that the TV landscape is vastly different than it was just a few years ago. TV is ever growing, bigger and bigger as a channel with more reach than at any other point in history, but how people are consuming it has changed. We have reached a critical tipping point. For the first time in US history, marketers can now reach more CTV households than cable subscribers, and that number is projected to grow exponentially this year. Cord cutting's at an all-time high. 27% of current cable subscribers plan to ditch cable in 2021, and that's compared to 15% who reported that they did in 2020. That's about double the cord cutting in 21 versus 20. So if you thought that that would slow down after 2020, think again. The consumer shift towards CTV is only accelerating, and it might explain why 1 in 2 linear TV and CTV buyers plan to shift to an audience first instead of a content first strategy this year. That also represents massive opportunities for advertisers. So about a year ago, the Trade Desk saw an average of 30 billion CTV impressions a day. And we anticipate that available impressions will accelerate faster than ever as major content networks launch new ad-supported services like NBCU Peacock and AT&T HBO Max. Our job at the Trade Desk is to help advertisers pick the right ads from that vast pool of supply, using data and buy-side controls for things like targeting, centralized frequency capping, and quality control, all of which we're going to talk about today. And in 2020, the Trade Desk actually saw 100% growth of CTV spend year over year, with 3/4 of the biggest advertisers using the Trade Desk all investing in CTV. And we can't talk about all of this without quickly touching on the upfronts. So the acceleration in streaming TV consumption opens up a vast new environment, and thus the way that brands buy and transact TV needs to dramatically change. And because of that, the upfronts are looking really different than they have for the past 10 or 15 years. In a typical upfront cycle, about $20 billion of TV spend is committed between May and August. However, as more marketers demand flexibility and data-driven advertising solutions for TV budgets, the way buyers manage relationships with these really important sellers and the way they manage commitments has to change. As the marketplace continues to be volatile, advertisers are growing increasingly uncomfortable with the idea of tying up TV budgets and long-term immovable agreements. In this environment, they need agility. According to our latest research, almost 60% of linear TV buyers said they are making fewer upfront commitments in 2021. And almost a third of those who are making upfront commitments are seeking more flexibility to cancel without penalty. Those spending less emphasize they'll redirect ad dollars toward data-driven solutions such as connected television. Consolidated CTV buying through a DSP allows advertisers to holistically optimize frequency and pivot based on performance and shifts in priorities, offering more flexibility and agility. And advertisers can benefit more from comprehensive measurement and optimization tools. So with the Upfronts right around the corner, I'm so excited to bring in Amy Good into this conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the Hershey company is taking an innovative approach to connected TV. And I just can't wait to have this conversation, this time in front of, 1,000 of our closest friends, Amy. So hi, how are you?
I am great. Thank you. Thank you, Jed, for having me be part of this webinar. We've come a long way. So
we have.
We have. And do you want me to kick off then with a few things to give you some background?
That'd be great. I think just for the folks who are joining us, it'd be great if you could talk a little bit about your role at Hershey and all of what that encompasses these days.
Sure. So I am the media director with a team of 8 terrific people here at the Hershey company. And prior to being here for about a year now, I have an agency background. I also did a stint in media research that's come in handy along the years, as well as my time at Purina in St. Louis, and then eventually at Nestle headquarters in Switzerland before Charlie asked me to come aboard here at Hershey. So, you know that we have these iconic, beloved brands like Reese's and Hershey's, Payday, etc. And frankly, I've learned, that we have about the same household penetration as toilet paper. So we are definitely in most households. We're a snacking powerhouse, of course, investing in our strengths and building new capabilities. And we certainly want to win when it comes to e-commerce. So we're doing a lot of great things here.
Absolutely. That household penetration stuff is unbelievable. And I never get tired of talking to you about chocolate and candy. And so excited to do more of that. We talked a lot about the changing landscape at the outset. Can you share a little bit about how that changing landscape has affected Hershey's approach to TV advertising? Have you had to revisit previous assumptions to reach this new sort of arena?
Certainly. So our media channel mix has evolved a lot in recent years. We've shifted from heavy linear to digital over time. Really, that rapid acceleration of the last few years, obviously keeping pace with the landscape and media consumption behavior, and most recently, really skyrocketing into streaming television. And by the way, there's so many words for it: connected TV, streaming TV. That's kind of what we're calling it to delineate the difference between digital and linear television. So we were one of the early adopters, I believe. And what's important to know is with this shift in investment comes big responsibility to the digital ecosystem. So where media consumption behavior goes, so goes the money, and so goes the responsibility. And that is to networks offering streaming, and so television networks offering the streaming capabilities, as well as all of the apps. And yes, we certainly had to revisit our assumptions about TV buying and streaming. In fact, it's been more difficult because with disparate offerings comes disparate delivery mechanisms and therefore disparate strategies. This has certainly not made our job easier, but we sure have a lot of fun doing it. And our job is to really curate as much as possible into one strategy with similar levers to pull to make those optimizations.
And you started from the incredible mass reach. Obviously, that meant Hershey's was a massive TV buyer because as traditionally the greatest mass reach vehicle ever. And then you just said it, you've taken a leading role in streaming and connected television. So how did you go so fast? Because I think we talked about you were so heavily in television, and here we are talking about a leading approach to this new and important channel. How did you move quickly?
Yeah, good question. So I'm really grateful that innovation happens pretty fast at Hershey. We're able to test and learn and align with marketing and our leadership much faster, I think, than many companies. So it's the size and structure of our organization makes the entire process more streamlined. And the idea and the strategy were there, frankly, before the tech was really ready for it. So we were able to evolve to reach those consumers and think through that opportunity. And as the tech was built, right, then we launched into bringing this to life because the tech was ready. And what I'd like to really point out is the streaming landscape is certainly complex. We all know that. But advertisers have been able to, think through that complex road with the growth of programmatic and supply chain optimization. Frankly, we've been down the complex road before. So I think we're a little wiser. And the point is that all eyes internally are watching the delivery and performance of this shift in investment. So know that we are going to be asking more difficult questions down the way. So whether it's a network FEP or a streaming native app, the expectation is, does it work? Does it look good on the screen, no matter what the size? And I will share, not all players are built alike, and the ad insertion technology is challenging, can be poor sometimes. And in linear TV, it's overwhelmingly, the majority of the time, pretty seamless. It's rare that I ever have an issue back in the day of my ad not running seamlessly on Friends or Grey's Anatomy. So I think that's something that I want to enforce, that it's not just the strategy, it's not just the Trade Desk's ability to help us deliver there. It's also we're counting on the delivery mechanism in front of the consumer.
Yeah. Well, you just referenced it. So I just want to lay out for everybody, a little bit more about your decision to build in flexibility with your publisher partners and really consolidate your network FEP buys into the Trade Desk and activate really all of OLV programmatically. Can you talk a little bit about that decision, just to sort of get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty for everybody listening?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the tech caught up with the opportunity, and we're able to consolidate our network TV FEP buys, full episode player, in the Trade Desk in order to manage holistic frequency across streaming TV and reach incremental households. I never want a household in your neighborhood to never receive my ad and your neighbor receives 10. It's just not an effective and efficient way to spend our money. So, however, with this flexibility, in this case, flexibility has many meanings. So the strategy took a cross-functional village. Jed, this wasn't just a village. This was a cross-functional village of the Trade Desk, our agencies, my team, over to marketing. And everyone did their part, including the willingness of the network FEP partners to play a role. Because frankly, each network has their own policies. And this part took some doing.
Yeah, that sounds right. I can't wait to get into more of the cross-functional village, as you just put it. And so everybody listening, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about convincing various stakeholders. We're going to talk about more of the math, for example. But before we get into it, I just want to stick with the why. So what challenges were you hoping to solve with all of this consolidation and this move? And then I can't wait to get into the cross-functional village.
Sure. So this is what it boils down to: household penetration and consumer experience with our ads. And of course, I mean frequency management. We don't want to waste the company's money. We are fiscally responsible for the effectiveness and efficiencies of the investment. So we want to reduce wasted impressions, wasted spend, and the goal is to maximize the impact of all digital video investments and embrace the opportunity for better reach. Keep in mind, you do have to sell it through these innovative, bold marketing tactics, right, to our internal counterparts. They really need to feel comfortable with where the new strategy is going.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into next. I'm sure for folks listening, who get it, who see where it's going, but who are thinking about the tough internal conversations and the precedents, and in some cases, lack of precedent that it takes to take this step. Would you share a little bit of what it looked like to gain the right internal sort of buy-in at Hershey?
Sure. So we went about it with this cross-functional village. And really, we built on our trust that we have gained with the team, with our agencies, with marketing, the credibility we've been building with Hershey leadership. And we really leaned on that established trust with our marketing organization and aligned with their interests in making their budget work harder. And collaborated with our partners and agencies to help build a really straightforward explanation, visual, showing how the tech works and what are the anticipated benefits. And if then Pipe's chart can work wonders, we even went as far as showing a house, 4 houses on a street, and how delivery typically works and what the vision looks like with this new strategy.
And that was what you referenced earlier, right? That was one of those houses got 10 ads and one of them got none or 1, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And the idea is that you can even it out to an optimal frequency, because something I know we've talked about is you don't want too many and you don't want too few. Both are huge problems. I love that. I love that image.
Effect. The Goldilocks effect.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, you got into, primary benefits, laying out primary benefits to internal stakeholders. And so, I guess I want to get into a little bit more of what sealed the deal. As we worked on this together, one thing that you always do, is you pushed us to do the math of it, and really forecast how the benefits outweighed the costs. What parts of your presentation do you feel like really sealed the deal for getting that buy-in done?
Yeah, I think it's an important part. Of course, we're media people. We care about how much is it going to cost. And the math was basically there when you did it. And we were skeptical at first. Believe me, the strategy has cost implications because there's suddenly a fee there that never was. But the math works. You have to use the data that you get. We're several months in now, and the data is streaming in, brand by brand, really digging into it, analyzing it, talking to marketing about it, and taking action from it. That's where you justify the incremental cost. And we've been able to improve household penetration with the same budget. Now that the campaign has been live for a few months, we've seen cost per household decrease by 25% in some cases. resulting in more effectively reaching households with streaming TV campaigns. It's really straightforward.
Wow. Well, I mean, just some of the things you just said, which were same budget, overall reach increase, cost per reach goes down 25%. Yeah, that's the math, right? The math works when you put it that way. And I think everybody listening probably can relate to some of those hesitations or concerns. There's a technology fee. There's, in some cases, new CPM considerations to take into account. But it's awesome to hear you talk about some of those results. Has the shift to programmatic resulted also in more control for those buys that you're activating that way?
Sure. I mean, increased control is a media person's dream, right? We'd all love to have silos go away. Excuse me. And this consolidated approach, excuse me. Sorry.
That's okay.
This consolidated approach really has given us more comprehensive measurement across channels. And of course, it offers transparency. We can make better, more informed investment decisions. And the reporting, even the reporting is key to accountability mechanisms that build trust between advertisers and publishers. So when the reporting shows that their investments are aligned and delivering on campaign objectives, that is not only an increased level of collaboration and results, but it also allows us to shift between partners. I mean, this is the ultimate in real-time data-driven marketing. And I will say that verification, my favorite subject, still plays a role. Okay? So first, criminal activity on the internet tends to follow the money. So we're all concerned about invalid traffic. Therefore, fraud accountability from vendors is expected. This is not changed. It's not just display, it's pervasive. As well, the other role that verification can play is, so I might see that a streaming vendor was delivering maybe 80% of the investment overnight. We literally have a metric that shows time of day that inventory is being delivered. Or that they're stacking all of our ads at the top of the hour. They're delivering only at the top of the hour. These kind of things are the new verification in streaming that we're looking at to ensure accountability in delivery, right? It is, I'm going to make a more informed choice about my investment for future campaigns and follow up on that reporting to optimize when I look at these new metrics. So with these capabilities, we're going to be asking partners more and tougher questions.
Yep. You really have over the years, I think challenged and created some incredible value in the world of verification. And that's pairs so well in my mind with the programmatic ecosystem and more control, because basically, just like you said, you have so much more data, so much more reporting. Something like what time and how many ads did someone see in a row? That level of visibility hasn't traditionally been available in television or even in IO-based digital buys. And now you have it, and you also have control of targeting, frequency capping, time of day targeting, device targeting, all of that good stuff, so that you can not only ask the questions, but you can actually fix it, and you can actually take that control into your hands, which is awesome. And as you said at the start, it's a whole bunch of new responsibility to not repeat the mistakes of the past in either digital or in television, both of which I think have marked improvements that we can make and and you're asking the right questions and you're doing that stuff. So I would love to ask what's next. I mean, your first priority was getting those FEP commitments with the networks into programmatic, and really, managing frequency across those streaming campaigns. What are you thinking about as where do you go from here?
Sure. So for our category and CPG in general, we're considering retail media, right? Our retailer partners are becoming media publishers. And so, extending this control outside of streaming CTV into other channels in order to understand true holistic frequency, that would be, heaven. As well as, even thinking about using linear TV data to ensure that streaming and linear campaigns are complementing each other. That's another next area.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Well, I love that. I'm going to follow up with you about that retailer point. That's a really good one. I think not just at Hershey's, but in all of our past lives, an area where you've led and Hershey's is leading is in the supply chain. As you started at the top, a cleaner, more equitable supply chain, and you've touched on it, throughout. But do you want to just share a little bit more about your work in that area?
Sure. I mean, I think the industry needs to collaborate on a better supply chain to clean up the channel itself and set a path forward for the future. And I know there's good work going on out there being done, but standardization is not quite there. That's what adds to that complexity of our jobs. And it is imperative to be able to buy directly from publishers that are reputable and have premium streaming services that I mentioned in their technology. And that strong technology with publisher partners can make this easier. So you can't forget that clean, safe, privacy-compliant data is also a part of this next story, right? That's its own webinar. But that's something that is part of the equitable supply chain as well, is that data and its future. Yeah,
that's really well put. And it's so important in connected television, right? If you think about the different sort of ways that digital targeting, identity, and data have been implemented traditionally, many of them hadn't extended into television or into smart TVs. And one thing I know that we talk a lot about, and the Trade Desk talks a lot about, is the importance of a identity framework that takes television into account and improves the supply chain in digital television and in connected TV. And so for us, our Unified ID 2.0 initiative that we support has been really important. Being email-based lends itself very nicely to streaming, but also it allows for all of those networks to do highly targeted, frequency capped, measurable advertising, and giving them an identity framework to allow them to do that helps you capture this extended reach, decreased cost per household reach. It helps consumers see fewer, better, more targeted ads. And it helps, of course, those publishers capture higher CPMs. So just as you said, data as the backbone for how we will continually improve advertising in the connected TV and TV space. Couldn't agree more. And we're really intent on UID2 playing a big role in how that comes together. So just to close us out a little bit, I'll bet there are a lot of advertisers on the line and agencies who are listening, and folks just who have asked themselves a lot of these same questions that you've now gone down the road, and they want to benefit from your experience. So what would you share with advertisers who are curious about shifting things from IO-based, CTV into programmatic? Are there 2 or 3 things that they should keep in mind with that consideration?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. So the two main things, of course, are do the math. Does it make sense for you, for your category? And use the data that comes from activating this strategy, as well as ask the networks for what you need. And I know I'm talking to a broader audience, but if we don't ask you, you may not offer. I know there's a lot right now with the upfronts going on, and we're going to continue to ask for what we need to be successful. So, shifting the upfront commitments from direct IO to programmatic, it's a journey. It requires all the stakeholder buy-in. It requires that cross-functional village with all your partners to develop a successful go-to-market strategy. And I'll offer this. What does an ADU look like in streaming TV? There are some principles from linear television that are important to carry over or find a new metric, because there are some things that I'm used to from accountability of my television investment, and that doesn't change when it's delivered through an app or any other service on the same TV in your living room. It doesn't change. So I think that the accountability continues to be a passion point because we have to. Thanks.
Really well said. Yeah, I love that, and I think that's its own webinar. What does an ADU look like in streaming? I think we should do that as a follow-up to this one. That's an awesome question. And let me just say thank you so much for this conversation and for countless others before this one, and for also just letting us be part of your cross-functional village on this journey. It's been spectacular, and we feel really fortunate to be a part of it. Thank you, Amy. With that, Stuart, I'll bring you back up just so that we can get to some of the questions that have been coming in via the chat.
Let me unmute. Thanks, Jed. And Jed and Amy, great conversation. Couldn't be more timely than things happening, of course, with the upfronts fast approaching and the new fronts coming up, and every other front every other front system coming through as we face all this. Listen, we're going to move into some audience questions, and let me just say that they've been coming in fast and furious throughout this. So we know, want to know what the next webinar is? We should probably answer all the questions that come through. But I just want to invite our audience, again, if you have a question for our speakers, Jed Dederick from the Trade Desk and Amy Good from Hershey, just simply use the question tool that you see there on the left side of your screen. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 10 minutes or so. Obviously, we're not going to have a chance to get to all the questions that come in. Submit them anyway. I always do forward them over to our sponsor. So there's always the opportunity for some of these for an offline response. Just some quick reminders as well. If you're interested in some of those slides and the findings that Jed shared at the beginning, you can download a PDF of the slide deck right now in the event resources area. You should see that tab near the question tool. Also, today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on demand. So if you've got clients or colleagues who you think would be interested in this topic, just send them that link directly or have them register as well. We'll send them that link as soon as the on-demand recording becomes available. All right, let's move into some of these questions here. And Amy, let me just start off with you. Look, we know if there's a word and a buzzword that has come through over the past year, it is agility and flexibility. If we've learned anything, throughout this sort of crazy pandemic, it's how to sort of change at a moment's notice. One of the things certainly is you're moving into a more of a connected TV program is you have potentially a little bit more flexibility. So can you talk a little bit about how connected TV really sort of makes it easier for you to sort of, maintain a sense of nimbleness?
Sure. So I think that, as I mentioned, it is the dream of any media person to have the opportunity to think about data and use data differently. And the set it and forget it mindset, when you activate this strategy, goes away. There are some things that we're doing that I believe give us a competitive advantage. So I'm not going to share in detail what it is we're doing. But the bottom line is, like I mentioned, you've got to use and analyze the data that's coming from this strategy. And that now you have a holistic picture of how your display is performing, your online video is performing, your streaming TV apps are performing, and your FEP networks and how that is delivering. You do the math. You suddenly have 4 or 5 data points. And what you can do with those combination is the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Jed, anything to add? I mean, I'm sure with a lot of the clients you work with, right, everyone's looking at upfront time as a flexible front, right? I think we keep hearing that name. Are you seeing anything within that?
Oh yeah, I think this conversation about how to have really strong relationships with great suppliers that are more flexible. How do you use data and still benefit from buying power? These are key questions that the world's largest and most sophisticated advertisers and agencies are asking. Some of the stuff that Amy shared today, I think is really great and leading. I think one thing that we really touched on quickly, but maybe brushed over a little bit, is the idea that we can talk about this with just FEP insertion orders all day, but the opportunity to consolidate alongside other channels in a single platform opens up what Amy just called out, which is, let's think about holistic reach and frequency across all channels. Let's think about consumer experience up and down the funnel with all of your different activations. Then we're really talking about flexibility, using data to your advantage, and just a new ecosystem.
A lot of questions have come in, and again, we have so many of them. I'm going to try to sort of try to keep some of the themes here. And one of the themes that seems to be coming through a lot, Amy, is related to creativity, right? And your creative approach in a connected TV world, right? And OTT or streaming is the terminology that you use, versus sort of, classic linear. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the creative issues that are facing and sort of how you sort of deal with creative on these different channels?
Good question. Media people love to talk about creative. We sort of think we are creative directors on the side. But, even though we make pretty spreadsheets, I always have Jill Baskin on my shoulder. She's our CMO. She's in charge of that creative messaging integrity. And you're right. I think that is an important piece of activating this strategy, is thinking through, is your message made for the medium or not? So it's something that we're definitely paying attention to. Is it's not just repurposing the TV spot that's on linear. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it makes absolute sense. Sometimes you need to think through what is right for that platform, technically as well as visually. So yes, it is certainly a part of how we're thinking through. And it takes another person in the village to be part of that team, because it is something you have to pay attention to and organize for, or it can get lost in all the tech.
Jed, another theme that comes through, and I'll throw this one in your direction, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, and I know you kind of addressed this at the end, which is the cookieless future, right? It's all anyone can talk about. I think we know all of that. But as people are looking at this sort of more integrated approach, right, this sort of more using connected TV, using linear TV, using traditional digital and digital video to get their messages out. How are sort of the shifts that are going on in terms of privacy impacting some of this? And obviously, look, this is a huge topic, and it's tough to sort of give in a 1-minute response, but I think we need sort of the high level approach on some of this.
Yeah. Well, look, one easy way to start is that, in smart TVs, in TVs, there have never been cookies, right? So the reality of the emerging shift to streaming combined with the changing landscape of privacy and identity is it presents opportunity to do it all differently and do it all better. And that's why when we as a company at the Trade Desk looked at the options for upgrading the third-party cookie, you had to look at something that once was relevant to television and two was consumer-centric and privacy-first. And that's why, for us, the industry initiative around Unified ID 2.0 really fit that bill. For the broader ecosystem, as you think about identity going forward with all of the opportunities Amy laid out, it's such a miss to not have identity solutions, be it a backbone like a UID2 or identity resolution such as cross-device technology that take television into account. And what I mean by that is you should have a household concept within identity resolution, as well as people and devices, because of course television happens at the household level. So what I would say is that much like so much of what we've talked about today, everything got stirred up, everything is different, and there's incredible opportunity on the other side of it. But it does take some digging in. On our end, we think that Unified ID 2.0 and strong identity resolution with a household concept for television are really important components.
Mm-hmm. All right, Amy, another theme here as this comes through, and that, of course, is, we talk a lot about connected TV, and I think you'd probably be the first to say linear isn't going away anytime soon. Maybe sooner than maybe we had predicted a year ago or a year and a half ago. It's still, huge watching numbers. So can you talk a little bit about how you see linear and connected TV complementing each other? And maybe we also want to look at that as sort of understanding some of the different KPIs that sort of work within that and how you ultimately sort of get that more unified measurement to really understand the two of them working in tandem.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So two-part answer there. First is television, linear television can still work. It still has a solid ROI. It depends on the brand. It depends on the objective. It depends on the target. But absolutely, it still plays a role. And on top of that, what I'm starting to see, I think all of our cross-functional village is starting to see, is the offerings that are coming from the streaming providers, our partners, are figuring out ways to cater to complementing linear. So is it Amazon wants to reach, you want to reach cord cutters? Okay, well, that could be interesting. I have a separate target that I'd like to reach with cord cutters, or some other metric or product offering that caters to reaching incremental nonlinear viewers. So it's starting to happen. It's one of those things, again, you have to ask for of your partners, but they're also starting to get smart. And they may have an incremental cost to reach those cord cutters, but we have to figure out, is it worth it? And sometimes the answer is yes.
All right. Amy and Jed, I think we're getting towards the end of our time here. So I want to be sensitive to all of that stuff. Listen, we didn't have a chance to get to a lot of these questions. So again, Jed, I will forward them over to the trade desk. So you can take a look at some of these, and maybe there's some things that people can respond to, or, run a post or something after this, but still things that we can talk. I just want to acknowledge to our audience, we didn't have a chance to get to your question. We are paying attention to all of them. But I want to thank the both of you. Just really great insights, and so interesting to sort of really get this sort of practical hands-on approach. Again, hearing Amy, your sort of in the trenches experience with all of this, really, really enlightening, I'm sure, to our audience. I just want to provide just some quick reminders here to everyone. Again, webinar's been recorded. Check your email 3:30, 4 o'clock today. We're going to send you that link. Share it with your colleagues. Lots of opportunity to share some of the knowledge that was shared today by our experts. Those slides, event resources, if you want them, as part of all of that, adweek.com/webinars, our webinar calendar. See what's coming up, sign up for something upcoming. I should mention as well, I know it's our Convergent TV Summit going on this week, adweek.com/events if you want to learn a little bit more about that. I think Elizabeth Moss is going to be speaking this afternoon, so just keep your eyes peeled for some of that. It's always interesting to get some of those details. But again, listen, I want to thank our speakers really today. Great opportunity. I want to thank our audience for taking time out of your busy day, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.